I'd just like to take an opportunity to thank you all for taking time in your evenings to spend some time with us at NQPHN and Redbourne staff while we run you through what is our final session of what's been a rediCASE training roadshow that we started earlier this year as part of our data improvement project. So as I have said, we are recording this session and the aim of that is so that we'll be able to give it back to everybody that has participated today, as well as those that haven't been able to join us this evening, along with a bit of a package of other documents to support you in your journey and your ability to use rediCASE to its furthest ability. Now, before we start this evening, I just would like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land on which we're all meeting today. So Northern Queensland Primary Health Network acknowledges the traditional custodians of the lands and seas in which we live, work and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. I am in Mackay this evening. I know we are across the NQPHN footprint, but I would just like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional owners in the land in which I am, which is the Yubira people. In addition to that, I would like to also acknowledge lived experience. So Northern Queensland Primary Health Network acknowledges the lived experience of those with mental illness, those impacted by suicide or substance use, and those in crisis, and the contribution support persons and staff make to their recovery. The strength, resilience, and compassion they demonstrate is at the heart of the work we do and a constant inspiration. As I mentioned at the beginning, this is what's been the final session on our roadshow. So we delivered face-to-face sessions in Cairns, Townsville and Mackay earlier in this year, and then are bringing you an opportunity to join us online this evening. So it's really just a space for us to be able to have somebody from Redbourne with us. So we're super grateful to have Louis here this evening to do a whole refresher on rediCASE. There were changes that were implemented into the system earlier in the year, so he's going to be able to work through all of that. And we're really just going to be able to talk to, from a PHN perspective, the importance of data integrity and the data that we are requiring to report back to the Commonwealth and how rediCASE is able to assist us all in ensuring we can capture everything. So we do encourage this to be an interactive session. As I said, everybody has been put to mute. I have a number of staff online on the session this evening. However, as Louis is in his part of the presentation, should you have any questions, you have a couple of options. We can pop them in the chat. Myself and my team will monitor the chat and we'll be able to raise those with Louis as we are going. Or you can use the option to raise a hand. Microsoft Teams has done an update, so it should number everybody in order, and we'll hope to get to everyone, and then we can take you off mute and allow you to ask your question at that time. I do have IT with us for probably the first 5-10 minutes or so. So if anybody is having any difficulties, you can jump that into the chat, and Nicolette has been assisting where possible there with that, but she is going to jump off as well at some point. So that's just a bit of housekeeping where that is concerned for asking questions. Do encourage participation though, and I'm hoping that as you go through the session with Louis, you will be able to see perhaps your own rediCASE platform and have some understanding of where he is at within the system. NQPHN data requirements, you're all here today because in some shape or form you are a contracted service provider that receives funding through NQPHN. That therefore requires a certain level of data that we then have to receive and send through to the Department of Health. So for us, what we really wanted to highlight today with you and as we go through with Louis is, the significance to the different options of data and how we are actually monitoring with the data as well. So for us, it assists us in our service planning and design capabilities to ensure that we're able to monitor and leverage to meet demands and trends that are happening, we're able to also keep an eye across any certain increases in levels of intervention, how we are then able to work with our providers to highlight areas where they have been significantly working heavier that might not have previously been an area they were working in. Outcome measures are something that you will have heard continuously from your contract managers at the NQPHN, and the requirement to be obtaining those. Louis is going to go into more detail around all of that, but it's really important for us and something that we've wrote quite heavily into our contracts from the 1st of July around the need to be capturing matched pairs, and that occurring at the beginning and the end of an episode when working with a consumer. We'll also be looking into clinical care indicators as well, and ensuring that we are meeting the required timeframes for suicide flags, as well as other monitoring requirements of culturally appropriate service delivery. From the sessions that happened earlier in the year, there were some really key learnings as a staff member and not a user of the data system. Sorry, in that we were able to see there are areas that we can be having better conversations with yourselves, and actually really seeing administratively what changes we can make that's actually going to then mean that the data comes through much cleaner. And so Louis will go into more detail in that. But what I actually do have available is a dashboard that we have created. And what that dashboard does is it is filtered in through the departments, through the PMHC MDS data that is put through into rediCASE. And we use these for our contract management conversation. So what's on the screen right now is an example of what the dashboard can show us. So all of the information that you put into rediCASE, NQPHN does not access that information. Everything we get is de-identified and comes back out through the MDS to us in this example dashboard that's up on the screen. So it's really important for us that we're going to be focusing on, matched pairs as a clinical outcome measure. We also look at new episode trends. We look at principal focus of treatment. I have another dashboard view available as well that looks at the number of active episodes. These dashboards are going to be used in a regular basis for contract management conversations from the 1st of July. So we really wanted to flag that with our providers today so that they got a heads up to the kind of things that we're able to see, so that we're able to present that to you and really look at the data integrity to make sure that we're actually capturing true and accurate information. Apologies. So for us today, really the aim is to improve the reliability and the accuracy of the data that we're capturing within rediCASE. We do not want reporting to be impactful upon time, and we really want to be able to ensure that you are able to spend the most amount of your available time with your consumers. But at the same time, reporting is a requirement, as is for the data. And so, we want to make sure that this session will ensure smooth sailing moving forward and hopefully limit any hiccups that you might be having within the system. So I just want to thank everybody for coming in today. We are going to be recording. I am going to be putting this together with the manual, along with a frequently asked questions document. So that is something that we have been capturing through our face-to-face sessions, along with anything that will come out of tonight's session as well, as a resource to be able to assist you in your work and working with rediCASE into the future. So that's all of it from me from the PHN. I'll stop sharing, and then Louis will be able to jump in and take over and start us with the presentation.
Cool. Thanks, Jen. Hey, everybody. Thanks for taking the time this evening for this training session. My name's Louis here from rediCASE. We've probably talked before through email or support calls. So I'm sure my name's been thrown about quite a bit, but yeah, so today I'll be going through the whole of the rediCASE system. Basically, we want to go through kind of two different, I guess, how would I say it? In two different user roles, essentially. So I guess the first half of this training, I'll kind of go through as a service provider, how to enter data into rediCASE, how to use the system, and what modules and things that you will have available to you as well. The second half of the training, I'll kind of go through the administrative side of things. So these are the tasks that I, the Redborn staff, and some of the NQPHN staff or NEMI staff might also have access to in terms of the setup and the general use of the system for the end users. So if I just start sharing my screen, get rid of that. Cool. Okay. So I am doing this training in a test environment. So there will be a few things maybe here or there that you might see in this training session that you won't see in production. However, it's basically a like for like. The whole process, the steps that we're taking, the data that we're entering it should be like for like in this training session versus the your production or live environment that we go through. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. So basically what I've done, I've logged in as a service provider user, and essentially I'm just going to go through the basic steps of creating a referral, actioning that referral, entering your treatment data, your session data, and some of the reports that you'll have available as well. Cool. Okay, so to get started, obviously when we log into rediCASE, this is basically the homepage. It's pretty blank at the moment. However, most of you will know that in order to see all your referrals that have been sent to your organization, you head over to the referral icon on the top right, and you're basically just hitting search, received referral. And this is essentially where all the referrals that have been sent to your organization will sit. So before I get too much into all the nitty-gritty stuff in here, we'll just go through the whole process of how a referral is created, essentially creating the client record in the system as well. So to do that, basically under the referral icon, there's also the option for a manual referral. This will bring up the North Queensland PHN referral form. It's obviously going to look a little bit different than the one that I'm showing you today, but the premise is still the same. So within the referral form, there are obviously going to be some mandatory fields, which will basically be denoted with a little red asterisk next to it. They'll also be highlighted as well once you try to send the referral, and if there's anything missing, those things will pop up on the screen for you as well. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly go through, create a dummy client, send it to myself, so we can start actioning that referral as well, move to the next steps. And just as a little side note as well, like in order to create a client in the system, there are 4 basic things that we need, which is the first name, surname, gender, and a date of birth. Okay, as we kind of go through this referral form, there are going to be additional demographic information, so things like country of birth, preferred language, etc. Okay, now most of these highlighted fields, so these demographic details, they are part of that PMHC MDS dataset. So wherever we can collect this information, whether it be on the referral form or later on, I can show you as well where it can be recorded or edited. Those things will kind of all push across to the same place for the same referral. So if I'm recording it here, I don't need to double enter it again when I'm going through the other data. Okay. referral profession, the referral organization type, whether a mental health treatment plan was included. Now, these next questions here, the IAR assessment. I don't believe it's active on your referral forms just yet, though it is something that that will appear, I guess, within the coming weeks or months. But essentially what it is the Department of Health have kind of developed an algorithm in the system where there's got these 8 domains, which is listed as D1 through to D8. And depending on how these different questions are answered on the referral form or within the treatment episode as well, it can be done, will spit out a level of care. Now, if you wanted to find more information on this, if you were to just type in Google like IAR DST, the first option here is basically the department's version of the referral of that. Sorry, those domains and those 8 questionnaires. So you'll be able to see a bit more information in terms of the rating guide. There's a bit more information about what each of them actually mean. So by all means, Google IAR DST. The first option you'll find is this page where you can have a look at a bit more information about how this data is collected and why it's collected and things like that. But I won't go too much into that because it can get a bit tiresome. But basically, yeah, so each question has a response from 0 to 4, and depending on how those questions are answered, we'll spit out a certain level of care that's calculated for the client. So I'll quickly go through these ones like so. Okay, and so as you can see here, based on these 8 domains, the algorithm has calculated the client's level of care is a level 4 or higher. So to put that into, I guess, to put it into perspective, it's kind of like saying that this client is at risk of suicide, require, you know, a higher level of care than just a low intensity service. So this IAR assessment will also kind of point referrers as well as, you know, GPs, yeah, referrers and other staff, PHN staff, to an appropriate service option for that client. So from here, that's basically this generic referral form. So everything that's required I've entered, and it'll allow me to hit select service provider. Just a quick one as well. There is options as well to upload files to referrals. So things like, you know, a mental health treatment plan, other maybe consent forms or documents if they're required as well. That's how you can upload documents. So I'm just going to upload an image of a koala instead. Cool. All right. From here, there's you can see here there's a few options at the top here, which is cancel referral. We'll stop what we're doing. It's not actually going to send a referral through. Everything that we have recorded here will be deleted. There's an option to save it as a draft. This is basically allows you to basically save it as a draft and pick it up later on. Downloading it, we'll just download a PDF version of basically what we're completing. And then once we're ready, we just hit select service provider. And what will happen is that it'll just show the different services that are available or that are appropriate for this client. So again, that might factor into those IAR level of cares. And so, for example, if it was a level 4, like we saw, maybe only suicide prevention will show. If it was a level 1 or 2, you might see low intensity services that might show. But for the purposes of the training, I've just made it show 2 different programs just so we can get a better understanding of what it looks like. But basically from here, you know, then we're ready to send the referral. We just want to pick which organization / program we want to send the referral to. So for this one, I might just send it to the suicide prevention program. You hit send referral, and essentially you'll get a little green message to say the referral saved successfully. And you'll be able to see that referral in that search received referral page. like so. So that was essentially the first step in, I guess, creating a client such a referral in the system. The next step as a service provider is actioning that referral, so accepting it, declining it, opening up a treatment episode, and recording our sessions or service contacts in the system. So a little bit about this page as well, just as an FYI. So the search received referral page is obviously just referrals that you've received as an organization. You won't be able to see any other referrals that have been sent to other organizations that, are outside of your organization, obviously. There's a few different, I guess, what we call filters at the top here. So if you know the referral number, client's name, you can just use those to search it. Of course, there are a few more filters that you can use as well. Now, this this page will only show us active referrals. So only referrals that, as you can see here in the referral status, that are not viewed, that have been viewed or accepted. By default, it actually hides referrals that have been declined or that have already been closed. Now, if you ever do need to look back at some old referrals or old client data, you can still search for them. What you'll need to do is, the easiest way to do it, I guess, is just to change the referral status filter to say all and hit search, and that will display all the closed ones or declined ones that are still assigned to you as well. Cool. Another thing about this page as well is, I guess with this table that we're looking at, there are a few columns, that you can see across here. If, for example, you wanted to customize or edit this particular table, you can. You've got a little cogwheel down the bottom here on the left-hand side. When you click on that, it can bring up this grid setting, so you can actually move around these columns to wherever you desire it. So for example, if you wanted the client name next to the referral number, you basically just pick it up and drop it next to the referral number. If you want to move their date of birth over as well, what program they're assigned to. If you wanted to hide columns as well. So for example, if you wanted to hide recipient organization, given that it's always going to be your own organization anyway, you can just untick it. That will remove it from the display, but other things as well. If you wanted to move across and edit, by all means, you can go ahead and do that. Hit save, and then the table behind us will just automatically update. Now this will actually retain that that setup. So next time you do log in, it should just remain the same, the way that you set it up previously. So that's always there for you as well. But other than that, just a quick, I guess, brief rundown of all these columns. Basically, referral number is just automatically generated by rediCASE every time a referral is submitted. So yours will obviously start with like NQ, or some of you may even receive referrals from NEI, which is like an NMI, followed by just a consecutive number. You'll see the client's name, date of birth, service type. Now the service type is always going to be the same as well. It just stands for the PHN MHOD, mental health, alcohol and other drugs. So again, if that's something, even though it's always going to be displayed, or always going to be the same, that might be potentially something that you might want to turn off. The program, referral date, commenced. So commenced column basically is just an indicator of whether or not the client has commenced treatment yet, which is through the actions, which I'll go through in a second. You've got the different referral statuses, how many sessions you've used will be displayed here, how many days it's been since you've last had a session. Now, as part of our, at Redborn / rediCASE, as part of our contract with the PHN is that we will actually say, for example, some of your referrals have the days since the last contact has been 90+ days. You may receive emails from us just saying, hey, just as a reminder, this referral has exceeded 90 days since you've last seen them. Do you want to review it? Do you want to close them down? Or are you going to continue trying to contact or see the client as well? Cool. All right. So that's the search received referral page. What I'll do now is I'm going to go into the details of this referral, and that's basically where we go to action the referral. Okay. Just ignore that little message at the top. That's fine. You won't see that in production. But anyway, so as we click on the details, basically what it's going to do is going to immediately just take us through to this actions page. Essentially, what do we want to do with the referral? Okay, so there's a few different tabs as well across the top here, which I'll go over. But basically, they all kind of relate to these different actions that we can perform. As well as that, you'll see on the very top that the search received referral number, you've got a bit of the information there, referral number, the current status, the client's name and date of birth. If they have an AKA name, that'll be listed there as well. This little exit button at the top right will just take us back to the search received referral page. But other than that, you've got a couple of what we call accordions in this page. Accordions basically mean like when you click on it, it just drops down. When you click on it again, it hides all the information. So there's client details and other details. Client details, pretty self-explanatory. That's where the client information is stored. So you can have a view of all that information at any time. So if you ever need to edit any of this information as well, you'll have this little edit client details button on the top right, because you'll notice that right now I can't edit any of this information. In order to do that, I need to click on the edit button. Cool. That'll open everything up. We can start adding a bit more information related to the client as well if you need. There are going to be things like, I believe, yeah. So if I try to save right now, this is where you're going to start running into some of these PMHC MDS required fields. So there's kind of 3 different levels. There's client level details, episode level, which I'll move on to next, and then your session or your service contact data. So right now, as part of the PMHC MDS, there's a couple of extra data items that we need to record. So that's estimated date of birth flag and the proficiency in spoken English. Now, I believe that most of this information will be captured on your referral forms anyway, so you might not run into this issue. However, if you do, it's basically just part of the MDS, so we need to record this information for every referral, every client that comes through. Okay. Now, there are additional, data items in here, like LGBTI status, ethnicity, whether the client has a disability, CALD status, etc. These are all additional. They're outside of that MDS data requirements. However, given that this information can be used for yourselves as well, you can record that information, that additional information, if it's appropriate. Further down, you've got all the contact information, so home phone numbers, mobile numbers, email addresses, contact notes, address information as well. Now, you'll notice as well, there's a few other extra little things here next to the contact information. So things like consent to call, consent to text, and consent to email. So for example, let me just type in a phone number in here. This might come up a bit later on as well when it comes to delivering, because rediCASE essentially can also send clients information. So they can send emails, you can send them SMSs as well. So all those kinds of things relate to these 2 little checkboxes, or these 3 checkboxes, sorry. In particular, consent to text and consent to email. So in order for us as a system, we require a concept of consent from a client in order to send information or to send them correspondence. So that's why we have these 2 checkboxes in here. Further down, you've obviously got your client address information and a bit of the referral information as well. So where it came from, who it's been sent by, etc. Cool. All right, so I'm just going to hit save here and I'll move on to the other details section. And again, I'm just going to click on the client details if I just want to hide all of that. And we'll move over to this section here, which is where all the actions are. So they're pretty self-explanatory. Basically, you'll see what do you want to do. There's a few different actions in here that I'll quickly go over as well. So the first one here is setting as a high priority. This isn't required in terms of like reporting or anything. It's something that you can probably just use internally if you wanted to basically just denote whether this referral is a high priority, basically meaning do we want to action this referral first? You'll get a little red arrow next to their referral as well, which will also be displayed on that search received referral page. That's that priority column. So you'll see there's a little red arrow just to say, hey, this is a priority referral. Let's try to get to this one first as a priority. If we wanted to remove that, we just click set as a normal priority and that'll remove that from the page. Accept and decline, pretty straightforward. Sorry. You will have the options, obviously, to decline referrals. If you do decline referrals, it will ask you for a reason why. So if I hit decline, it'll come up with this little menu. Okay, and it'll ask us for a reason why we're declining the referral, which could be, any one of these. We can type in other details as well if we needed to, and we hit decline. And basically what will happen is, like I mentioned a bit earlier, that referral will be hidden from you on that search received referral page. However, it does go back to if you decline the referral, what will happen is that the referral will go back to the admin users in order to reassign to another provider or another organization if it's applicable. But I won't do that for this one. I'll carry on with it. Other actions that you'll notice here is assigning a referral to other practitioners. So on many occasions, you might just have a referral that's not assigned to anyone at your organization. But this little action here is how you can assign to different practitioners within your organization. So you can see here, I've got two different users. One's a mental health nurse, one's a general psychologist. So again, this is just a simple little thing where you just click on whoever you want to assign it to, hit assign. That'll shoot an email out to that practitioner as well, just to let them know that a new referral has been directly assigned to them. And basically we'll just have a link to the page that we're on at the moment. The next action down here is adding admin notes. They're pretty, again, this is not part of the MDS or it's not mandated in any way. However, it's just an additional thing for you guys to use if you'd like. Yeah, basically, like the name suggests, it's just where you can record admin or administrative notes against the client's file, which could be anything from, contact attempts or travel time, things like that. However, like I said, it is just an additional thing. It's up to you to use that as well. So you can just type in those notes, hit the save referral note at the top right, and those notes get stored here in this little notes tab, where you'll just have your username, date and time, and whatever you've typed through in those notes. Uploading documents, it's pretty much works exactly the same as I showed you before in the referral forms. So I won't go too much into that. The next one is non-clinical activity. So again, one of those things that might be optional for you guys, but it kind of does play a role in terms of somewhere where you can record, like proper non-clinical activities. So things like contact attempts, like I said before, traveling time, appointment booking. You'll see here there's a whole list of different things that we can use. But it could just potentially be used as things to record as, as practitioners. There are those extra efforts that you go, that you have, I guess, that you perform outside of the actual clinical care with the client. So non-clinical activities where you can record some of that as efforts as well. Not everything in here is is mandatory as well, by the way. So I think only, I guess, the description and start and end times are really what's required. But other than that, yeah, that's basically your non-clinical activity. And again, when you save it, or your
Sorry,
non-clinical,
Louie, it
yeah,
was me jumping in.
yep.
And I apologies, I'm doing a very poor job of monitoring the chat. I will do better.
Oh,
You
is
shouldn't
that?
be doing multiple things. We've just missed a question from Rebecca wanting to know. So we have missed the opportunity. We've moved on. But what if people are living rough and we have no fixed address or phone number?
Oh, okay. Okay, good question. So I believe that within the referral details, we'll go down. Okay, so I guess in that example, on the referral form, obviously you can write the address as like, NFA, no fixed address or no fixed place of abode. As well as the contact information it's not required in terms of the MDS, but I think it is required on the referral form. So the users might have to just record maybe null or no contact information. I think if I you'll have these autocomplete suburb fields throughout the system as well. So I think if I were to type, yeah, no fixed abode, as a suburb, that I guess is part of the MDS as well when it comes back to reporting. No fixed abode is where you can record that information.
Louis, sorry, does that Victoria as a state, is that a forcing function?
Yeah,
or you can change that?
You can change the state if you like.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it's
Thank
just
you.
by default. It's just picking Victoria, but yep. I believe there's also there is going to be an additional question later on, which is what is it? Homelessness status. So you can denote that information again there as well, to say whether or not the client is homeless or in temporary housing and things like that, which I'll go through soon.
And Louis, if I can just say, I think it would probably be preferenced if the suburb could be approximated, even if it was like you're in Cairns delivering the service that you put Cairns, even if you don't have a specific address.
Yep. So I guess just where the general whereabouts is where the client is staying or where the client is at that time. So this is just the client information, the client address. There are other places where you can record, which is at service contact, so where we're delivering the service as well, which I'll get to anyway. Cool. All right. Cool. So where was I? Non-clinical. Okay. The other little things as well within these actions is correspondence. It's probably not something that's been turned on just yet for you guys. However, it might be something that we might venture into later on down the track with NQPHN. But essentially, like I mentioned a bit earlier, in relation to that consent stuff with the client info, rediCASE does have the ability to send information out to a client, so things like emails or SMSs. So one of those little tools down the bottom in this actions page is correspondence, which will basically allow the user to pick an SMS or an email and allow us to send different templates as well. So this is something that I might go through in the second half of the training in terms of the admin setup. But basically, you'll have these correspondence templates. So an admin user can set up these different templates in terms of the yes surveys, which might be something that comes up a bit later on with the PHN or other surveys as well. So for example, a how are you going survey. Basically, you can build a template in the system, which will basically pre-fill information like their client's name, their referral number, who they were referred from, what organization they were referred to, as well as like survey links. So these are links to specific surveys, so they can open that up. They can answer a survey. Once they answer the survey and submit it, they all come back into the system as well, so you can review that information. Another one that is probably not available to you guys just yet is adding alerts. So these are kind of just what we call client alerts, so things like safety alerts, medication alerts, allergies, those kinds of things. Pretty simple to do as well. So you just hit add alert, and you've got these different types. So is it an allergy, general alerts, medication alerts, safety alerts, etc. So for example, we can pick an allergy alert. What type of allergy? Is it animal, drug, food, seasonal, or others? Let's just do animals, not cats, just cats. And we can set them as active. We can set expiry dates or review dates, especially when it comes to other allergies as well. So those kind of things can be done. However, they're not mandatory here when you're setting up alerts. However, they're there. So again, you just hit save. You'll notice at the top here, there's like a little indicator to say that this client has one allergy. You can click on that. It takes us through to the alerts tab here, and it'll show us what type of allergy it is and all the information that you stored before. Cool. All right. So those are basically all the actions. I'll quickly just go over these other tabs that haven't been mentioned before. So the history tab, basically what it is, it just shows us an audit of what's happening with the referral. So the system will just automatically date and timestamp it, what happened and who did it. Notes is where the admin notes are stored. Non-clinical is where your non-clinical information is stored. There's also an additional tab here called contacts. So this is where you can record those emergency contacts as well. Again, I'm not entirely sure if this stuff is turned on for you guys. However, it is just an easy flick of the switch. If you do want these things turned on, you can just send us an email, probably CC your program manager as well from NQPHN, just so they're in the loop. We can turn those on. So two of those things, I guess, was the contacts and alerts. So I'll just quickly go over what contacts is. So you'll notice there's two different tables in here. One is, the top one here is like personal or relationship or emergency contacts. And the next one underneath it is organization level contacts. So things like their GPs or doctors, school contacts or other health professionals as well that you can record. So I'll just go through here and create a new like emergency contact or family contact. And I'll hit save just so I know what's mandatory here, which is basically, going to be the first name, surname, and a contact number. You can say what relationship they have to the client, whether it's, there's a whole list of different relationships here. And you can add in any notes. Set it as active, hit save. And again, so you'll see this table basically automatically update as we're saving data. And the same goes with the organization level contacts as well. So you've got the different health contacts, support contacts, or a school contact as well, so you can record that information. Documents/communications, this tab basically will just contain any of the uploaded documents that you've uploaded or the referrers uploaded. So you might find their mental health treatment plan in here. This is that koala image that I uploaded with the referral, so you can always go in and have a look at that.
Louis, we have a question from Louise wanting to know if rediCASE information is possible to be imported into Communicare.
Okay, so it's a good question, but that might be something outside of the scope of, I guess, rediCASE and I guess this training. As I'm kind of going through the session, when I get to, I guess, reports, I can we can go through, I guess, the different types of reports that you can extract out of rediCASE and whether or not it can be imported into that other third-party system. I'm not entirely sure how that would all work, but that might be something we can probably look at during the reporting, and hopefully we can answer that question for you there. But it really just depends on, how is it communicate? How, if they have an option, I guess, to import data from other services, whether it's just through an Excel spreadsheet or if there's other APIs that might be required.
And Louise, if we can't answer that tonight, it may be something that we take offline for a separate conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. No worries. Cool. Cool. Yeah, so documents, communication. So yeah, the other thing that you can find in here is obviously the communications out. So you can see here, that's the survey that I sent out 2 minutes ago. So you can see that information here. So any comms out that you go through will be returned here. And say, for example, this survey was completed, it'll kind of show up here in the communication in table because the communication is coming back in. So you'll be able to review that survey questions and how they were answered in here as well. This is where you can also view the referral form as it was submitted through the referrer, which is that blue little link here, which I'll click on. And it's basically just what we saw when I first created the client. However, obviously everything's uneditable. We can't actually change any of this information. Cool. So apart from that, I guess there's an additional tab in here, which is appointments. So again, it's not something that's been turned on for you guys. However, it's an appointment module. So it's where you can kind of book appointments with clients. So in particular, we're in Michael Smith's client file at the moment. If we wanted to create an appointment, I haven't turned anything on correctly, but essentially it's where you can just, book appointments. So you just pick a date and time, who's attending. Obviously it's going to be the client, Michael Smith. And that's basically it. It's a quick little thing. I believe that, if I had it all configured on correctly, I could show you a bit more, but I think this little appointment booking tab at the top here will basically take us through to a calendar where you can actually see the appointments that are booked in on an actual, calendar to show you your work week, etc. I'll see if I can get that one looked at in the second half. I think I should have it turned on correctly with the admin side of things, so I can quickly go over that again later. All right, so other than that, we've basically gone through all the actions in here. So I'm just going to click accept, and essentially we'll just move on to what happens next with the life of its referral. Okay, hit accept. And you'll kind of notice as well that the accept and decline buttons have disappeared. There's a new commence button, and there's also a close referral episode button. So that accept and decline action is you as a service provider. You're accepting it, you're taking ownership of it, or you're declining it. Now, afterwards, say for example, it's been a couple of days, we've tried to contact the client several times. However, either the contact number is incorrect, or we spoke to them and they didn't really want to proceed with the referral anymore. They didn't want to seek out services. So as a service provider, what I usually kind of instruct is, if that does happen, we just ask that you close the referral episode. So I am sure, I'm sure that there is, but I'm not entirely sure about the details of it. But there might be, KPIs around this kind of stuff with NQPHN. Whether at the time of you accepting the referral, you have, 7 days, I guess, to contact the client, book them in, and try to see them. But other than that, so if that does happen and the client doesn't want to proceed with the referral, you can just close the referral episode from here. Okay, it'll just open up this little window and it'll ask us for the reason for completion, which will be, in this example, the client further contact, today's date, hit close, and that's basically it. There's nothing else to do with that referral. But I'm not going to do it on this one, but that's just as an example. The other action, the new one that we can see now is commence, and essentially we want to click this commence button to open up a treatment episode with the client. Now during my trainings, I usually, because it kind of gets a bit confusing for some people, is that I usually instruct people to hit this commence button after you've actually seen them for the first time. The reason being is that when we hit commence, it's going to come up with all that MDS, that additional mandatory data set information. So things like homelessness flag, employment participation, the principal focus of the treatment plan, and things like that. So you'll see as well, like some of them are already kind of pre-filled. So referral profession, suicide flag, mental health treatment plan flag. The reason why they're pre-filled is because they were on the referral form. So that information will get transferred over to here. You'll see that those 8 domains that we spoke of a bit earlier as well, 1 through to 8 with the level of care. But other than that, all the other stuff, so if I do try to save and continue through here to get to the next step, rediCASE won't let me do it until I enter all of the MDS data. So again, with a area of user or residence, we can just type in no fixed address or no fixed abode. That homelessness flag, I guess, as well, that we spoke of a bit earlier, so you can mention that, at risk, sleeping at RAF, or not stated. Marital status. Okay, and then you've got yes, no questions, I guess, with the medication as well. So again, this is why I kind of say that it's probably best to hit that commence button after you've seen them for the first time, because that's basically where you can kind of gather most of this information during that first session as well. This question down here, consent to anonymized data. Basically what it means is whether the client consents to share information with the Department of Health. So everything that we're kind of recording in here, if I say yes, their information and their treatment data will be submitted as the in the PHN reporting. It is all de-identified, however. So yeah, so that's a yes, no here. If they do select no, essentially what will happen is that when we're doing the reports for the MDS data, this record will be excluded. Okay. Principal focus of treatment plan. So given that this is a suicide prevention referral, there might be different options depending on how the program's been set up, which I'll go over in the second half of the session. But basically, as an admin PHN level user or here at us at rediCASE, we can set up these different default values. So if we know for a fact that the principal focus of a treatment plan for this particular program is always going to be, like say, psychological therapy or low intensity or complex care package, we can basically just remove all of these other options and just make it automatically fill in with one option if that's appropriate. So one of those things was the suicide referral flag. So in the setup for that suicide prevention program, I know that this is always going to be a yes flag, so I basically just defaulted it to always select yes. So there's the domains, and then we've got the other required fields here, principal and additional diagnoses. Just note that these two can't be the same. So if I do try to pick panic disorder and save and continue, rediCASE will just give me a little message at the top to say that they can't be the same. If there is no additional diagnoses, you can scroll all the way down and there's an option to say no additional or missing. Okay, so once all of the MDS, so this is that episode level MDS data. So once all of this stuff is completed, we should be able to just hit save and continue. And then immediately what's going to pop up again is just our create service contact screen. And this is essentially where, so this is that third level of MDS data. So again, you're going to see all these mandatory fields with a little asterisk next to it. You won't be able to save it without completing all of them. So this needs to be done basically every time a new session is completed with the client. Okay, so we'll go through these, I guess, different tabs as well. So details. Obviously, this is just details about the session. So the date, the time, whether they attended and things like that. Just note that you can't future date your session. So I can't do a session in the future, and I can't do sessions prior to the date of the actual referral. So again, like if the referral was sent today, I can't say I did a session 2 days ago. If we do try to save that, rediCASE again is going to come up with a little message at the top to say, hey, we can't do that. This is the reason why. But other than that, we continue on with the required fields. You'll notice as well, like this page has kind of changed over time. If you are, experienced users in rediCASE, this page, basically, we've kind of made it so the workflow is a bit better. Previously, service contact type used to be at the top, which used to throw a bit more. It used to throw a lot of issues in terms of the data recorded and the reporting as well. So what we've done, we've basically just did the participant attend as the first option. If you do say no, so if it is a no-show, what will happen is that kind of rediCASE will just pre-fill and lock the MDS fields to the appropriate options for a no-show. Like you can see here, we can't actually edit this either. So if we did, so that's for a no-show. However, if the client did attend the appointment, we can obviously just hit yes, and then we'll be required to enter all the other MDS data. So start and end times, service contact type, which we can just say suicide prevention, modality, face-to-face, who participated in the session. You may, on the odd occasion, especially, I guess, with children, you might actually not see the individual client themselves, but rather their parents in regards to the client. So that's always a different way you can record that information as well. However, you'll see here that because I did pick individual client, the participation indicator as well is kind of defaulted to the correct value. But unlike that example that I used where maybe use a child, the child is the client, on the odd occasion, you might just only see like the family members of that person, of that client, and not the actual client themselves. So you'll see here that because I picked family, I can actually pick alternatively whether the client themselves attended with the family or whether they didn't, which basically just indicates that I just saw the family members. That's all good. Service contact venue, so where was the session held? Things like telehealth and internet or video-based sessions. As a preference, when you do record those things, I think we can just write as not applicable. So the service contact modality was not face-to-face, but usually, for the most part, face-to-face sessions are usually held within your own service provider's office. You've obviously got different options in here as well. Service contact location, so where the session was held. I'm just going to type in Cairns. Co-payment, this is actually nulled, or is grayed out, sorry, so you can't actually enter anything information in there, so that's all good. Service contact interpreter, so whether or not, an interpreter was used. There's also this flag here, so outcome tool administration flag. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. Outcome tool administration flag. And basically this is kind of just an indicator of whether or not one of those outcome tools have been recorded during this session. So those things like a K10, K5, SDQ, CIDAS, DAS21s, those kinds of things. If you do record a response in this question as the outcome tool I was offered and completed, rediCASE will actually, so if I, for example, if I go try to save this session now, rediCASE is actually going to say, hey, record the outcome tool for the service contact. So I'm just having a look at the question because I saw a hand get raised up before. Please explain when. Okay, please explain when and why a co-payment would be made. So on that, Kerry, so in your system, this is actually going to always be 0. You can't edit this information. It's one of those weird things that it's part of the MDS. However, the co-payment are things like, you know, if the client had to pay, there was a gap payment, I guess, in order to see your service. But given that all of these are funded through the PHNs, there is no gap. So this co-payment, although it's part of the MDS, it's always going to be a 0. Okay, so that's basically all the details about the session. You'll see across the top here, there's a few other tabs which I'll quickly go through. So the first one, clinical notes. Clinical notes, again, is one of those things that are optional for you if you want to use it or not. Again, these clinical notes, they can't be viewed by any of our staff here at Redborn or rediCASE. They can't be viewed by any of the other staff at the NQPHN. They're only accessed by yourselves. And yeah, like the name suggests, that's where you can type through your clinical notes. The next tab across here is your tools and screens. And so this is where you'll be required to enter those outcome tools. So I think Jenny mentioned a bit earlier in regards to matched pairs. This is how we start to get those matched pairs. So for example, this is going to be my first session with the client. So I'm going to do a K10 with them. Okay, so you go to the Tools and Screens tab, you select the outcome tool from the list, hit select. The questionnaire will just, you'll notice at the top here, there's a couple of things, a couple of extra little tools. So one is apply the only apply total score. Now, when I tick this, it essentially just allows me to kind of skip over the questions and just manually type in the score down the bottom here. You'll see as well that because it's a K10, the score must be between 10 and 50 to be valid. 99, it's one of those options that basically all the data sets have to say that's stated or unknown. Otherwise, obviously, we can untick this and we can go through each one of the questions one by one. And the score will just get automatically calculated down the bottom. Now, in terms of the matched pairs as well, there's always going to be this question here that's mandatory, which is the reason for collection for the outcome measure. And because this is my first session, by default, this has picked episode start for me. However, when I'm recording my, like, say, 4th or 3rd or 6th session within the episode, and I'm doing another K10, that's when I'll be expected as a service provider to record it as a review, or if it's towards end. So I'll get back to that in a little bit afterwards, but basically from there, once you're happy with the K10 score, you can just click on that save tool button before you hit the green save button. That just ensures that this K10 is recorded against this session. So on this date and time, I completed a K10 and the score was 33. Cool. Okay. You can obviously add more outcome tools. So if you did a bit more with the client during this session, like an SDQ or a CIDAS, you can pick those outcome tools as well. So you can, obviously do more than one per session. So some of the tools act a little bit differently. So in here, you can't actually just manually type in the score. You actually have to go through the questionnaire in order to get the score. Cool. And then finally, the last tab in here is called the Outcome Tool Report. And basically, this tool or this tab will spit out a graphical display on the outcome tools as I progress through treatment. I haven't saved anything at the moment, so it's just going to say nothing's available. But basically, I'll show you that in a second anyway. All right, so that's basically my first session. So I'm just going to hit save on this.
Louis, we have just had a question come in.
Oh, yeah.
So Charmaine is wanting to know if we can include Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander specific assessment. So she's given an example, excuse me, of Strong Souls.
Okay, yeah. So look, we are, like, as rediCASE as a software company, we're happy to develop and build these outcome tools. Growth and empowerment measure. Yeah, so we're happy to kind of build and develop these outcome tools for you guys. However, it does come at a cost to the PHN. And we also need to just ensure that there's no, like, copyright or trademark issues related to those outcome tools. I doubt there will be, especially when it comes to the to those kinds of ones as well. So Strong Souls and growth and empowerment measure. But yeah, we are happy to build those outcome tools in the system. There's no problem. It just that those kinds of communications and I guess projects are usually just managed through us and the PHN at their request, because obviously we need to bill them for that. But that might
Louis,
be
can I
another.
just jump in? Oh, actually, I can see Cara is coming offline, so I will just carry on, and then if Cara wants to jump in case I miss anything. When it comes to outcome tools, absolutely know that the K5 is not an appropriate or useful tool really for working in this space, but it is the mandatory tool that we are required to use. So K5 is within the system. I encourage you to work with your contract officer to consider alternative assessment tools that are best suited for the communities that you're working with. In no way are we stopping you from using alternative tools. The system might not capture it at this point in time, but we would still be interested in any evidence that you can show us where this is proving meaningful outcomes. But at the moment, while the NQPHN has to report on K5s, that as the minimum requirement, we are doing so to the department. What we encourage our providers to do is to let us know these alternative tools and to also be very aware that our CEO and board are advocating on behalf of our NQ region for the department to acknowledge alternative tools to better suit our population needs. So it is a work in progress, and at the moment we have the system set up with the minimum requirements, so being the K5 that is in there, but absolutely appreciate that you will probably be going above that and using better suited tools for your communities. Cara, did you want to jump in and add anything else?
Yeah, Jen, I was just going to say we are really, as Jen said, really interested in understanding what other tools and measures might be being used. And I think in discovering that with your contract managers, if there's some really common tools, then it could be an opportunity for us to consider adding in additionally with Redborn. We'd have to go through some processes, but it would absolutely still require the K5 as a minimum. And what I'm really interested in for our advocacy with the department is actually being able to show K5 compared to some of these much more appropriate measures that our providers are using to actually evidence why we need to have a little bit more flexible thinking. That's going to be a long road, but yeah, so please talk to your contract managers or Jen or I around the types of tools that you're using.
Cool. Cool. All right. So as I was kind of just going through while Jen and Cara were talking, I was just including another K10. So basically, I was kind of just going to an example of, let's just say, so I've already completed my first session, but let's just say this is my last session, even though it's my second. So when I was recording the K10, like we mentioned a bit earlier in terms of those matched pairs, essentially this is kind of what we want to see. We want to see one session, it's like the first session with an outcome tool as recorded as episode start, and then towards the middle or end of treatment, wherever you are, we want to record another outcome tool at review or end of treatment. In particular, start and end, I think, is what we want to aim for. So that's what we consider like a matched pair. So, so when that's recorded, like so, save that session. So in terms of reporting, if, for example, this was a full episode where I've recorded, maybe 7 or 8 different outcome tools, service contacts, and, obviously with different dates, we'll see obviously a matched pair in those reports when it comes to this referral, because we've had one at the start of treatment and one towards the end of treatment. So I'll just note as well, I'll just go back to that outcomes report tab. And basically the outcomes report tab will essentially just going to show us a display of how the outcome tools or how the client scores have progressed through treatment. So if we are doing 3 of these outcome tools within an episode of care, or 2 for this example, so you'll see here on the first service contact, the score was 33. On the second one, or on the last one, sorry, the score was 23. You'll have all the questions and answers below here, and the outcome scores, dates they were administered as well. Cool. All right. So that's kind of essentially it in terms of a service provider's use of the system.
Louise,
yeah.
Sorry, can I just jump in? And I'm not sure if you did cover this, but just to reference from some of our previous sessions, in the collection reason, that's at times if you complete a review because the person, say, going back to the GP in our current service system for another referral, and then they don't return, if you don't go back and change the reason for the collection, it won't actually collect as a matched pair.
Oh, right. Yes, I do remember this. Yep.
So just as a flag, in the conversations, we're really aware that often people are collecting multiple outcome measures, but at times the last collection that is in for the person ends up being a review rather than an end, but you can go back in and edit if the person in fact doesn't come back to a session, so as part of your closing off process. That's correct, isn't it, Louis?
Correct, yeah. So during that closing off process, so as Cara mentioned, if one of these sessions were noted as a review, before you close the episode of care, which we'll all get to in a second, what you essentially want to do is open up that service contact, the last one that you had, with an outcome tool. Open it up, go to the Tools and Screens tab, hit Edit, and just change the reason for collection. So previously it would have been a review, so just change it to an end, and hit Update and Save. We will eventually get around to building a quicker or a smarter way to do this rather than having you guys as the end users go through and order that information. That'll come in good time, but so that's how you would do that. So you edit the service contact, you go to the Tools and Screens tab, and you edit the actual outcome tool that was recorded here and change that reason for collection. Cool. Okay, so the next kind of steps, I guess, will be how to close a referral. So there's essentially kind of 2 ways to do that. One is obviously through that close referral episode button through the Actions tab, which I just showed through earlier. The other one is actually through the service contact as well. So for example, if I'm recording my last service contact today, sorry, I'm just going to quickly go through this. Okay, so service contact final. The other way, to close a referral episode is by using this option here where if it is the last session, service contact final, we pick no further services are planned within the current episode. It is going to ask us for an additional question as do we want to close the episode of care? If I pick no, obviously it's just going to leave it open and we can do it later. However, if you just wanted to bundle up in the one process, you just tick yes. And then when you save that session, it's going to ask us again for the reason for completion. By default, it's going to put in today's date, which is the service contact date. So reason for completion might be treatment completed, or you might have a different option in here, so client declined further contact, etc. Yep, and as part of the new MDS that was released in January this year, you've also got an additional question here, organization type referred to at conclusion. So whether or not the client was referred to another provider, you can pick what type it was. Otherwise, most of the time I would assume it's going to be a none or not applicable. So you would select that and hit close. That again will just shut the referral down. And from there, so that's that. But I'm just going to leave this one open for the time being. Just to go over, I guess, just these few other tabs as well. So after you've commenced an episode of care, that initial data, that episode level data that we saw, so things like, the principal focus of treatment plan, the medication stuff, all that information is stored here in this case file tab. Okay. So if any time, or if at any time, this information, changes throughout treatment, by all means, you can just click on the case file tab here. And if you need to edit any of the information, you just click on edit. You can just make changes where applicable. Let's just say unemployed now. Hit save, and so that episode level data will be updated as well. Cool. All right. And then so that's basically, I guess, the life of the referral in terms of what happens from start to finish. So, but what we've done is we've created a referral. We've commenced the episode of care, and then we've accepted the referral as a provider. Then we've commenced an episode of care, and then we've kind of gone through and entered all of our service contacts within the episode as well. So the next thing I guess we'll go through then would be the reporting side of things. So the reports as providers, you might have limited access to. So the ones that I'm going to show you through today, hopefully they should be the same ones that you'll see, but I'll point those out anyway. So to access the reporting capabilities that as you as a service provider will have in rediCASE, you just need to go to this administration module at the top right and you go to reports. Okay, and it's going to give us a list of different reports that are available for us. So this might look a bit different than the ones that you currently have in yours. However, they are available if you need to access them anyway. So I'll quickly go over each one of these reports and what they do, what they output. So starting off, we'll go with the active clients report. Now, your active clients report is basically going to show us all the active clients within our service, within our referral organization. You can filter it out by program, or you can just leave the program filter blank, and it'll just show us on screen. So download will show us on screen, sorry. Excel, report export to Excel will obviously give us an Excel spreadsheet about it as well. It is quite generic, so it's just got the client's first name, surname, date of birth. what program they're on, how many days it's been since they've last had a session, etc. The next one down is called the Activity by Service Contact List. And again, as just a little note, whenever you do pick up a new report from this list, you just hit this Go button, and essentially that just kind of brings up new different search parameters for it. And for some reason, this one's not playing with me today. Okay, hold on. All right. Okay, so this one we just got dates. So let's just do July till today. Again, you can kind of filter by practitioner if it's required. Otherwise, we just leave it blank and we'll just search for all of them. So you can see here, these are the 3 sessions basically that I've recorded just now today. And basically it'll just contain a bit of the information about, the program, the provider, which is the user, the client, the session dates, how long or the duration for, what the referral number is, and a bit more of the other MDS data as well. So service contact type, participant, modality, and the venue. These other 2 kind of reports I might skim over, but basically communication out and the survey report, they all kind of just relate to the surveys that we send out, even though they're not being used at the moment in your version. Basically, you can kind of have a look at the survey data that's been returned. So for example, I completed that How Are You Going survey that I sent through. That information will kind of populate in this report. But I won't go too much into that one. The next one is non-clinical activity. So like the name of this report suggests, it all relates to that non-clinical activity that you record against the within the referral. So again, you got additional filters in here. You can do it by practitioner, by program. The non-clinical activity description. So if you just, for example, wanted to have a look at all your appointment booking activities, you can pick appointment booking. Otherwise, you can leave them all blank and by default, we'll just show everything. Okay, so same thing. Pick your dates, export to Excel, and that'll just open up a little spreadsheet containing that information. So it shows you all the non-clinical activity that's been recorded within that date period. It'll also tell you the total number of hours or time consumed by all of this non-clinical activity as you record it. The next 2 reports down, I won't go into the AOD and MDS report at all. Actually, it's not part of the what you guys are using in rediCASE. But the other 2 reports down here, these data dump reports. Who was it? I think maybe Louise. These could be a couple of the reports that you might want to look into in terms of what was it, like importing into Communicare. Basically, these two data dump reports, as the name suggests, they're just data dumps of the information. So episodes contains a lot of the information about the referral, where the referral came from, the recipient organization, which will just be yourselves, the client information, all of that episode level data, as well. So those medications, homelessness status, principal focus of treatment plan, all that kind of stuff is in these reports. So as you can see, as I mentioned, it's a data dump. So there are a lot of columns in here, and it's basically a dump of all the information that it can find on the episode. So again, you're going to see a lot of the referrers information at the start, the client information. You'll see the client level MDS data, so things like their country of birth, preferred language, proficiency in spoken English. As you can see, it kind of goes on and on. You've got a bit of the information about yourselves as a referral organization, who the referral's assigned to, whether referrals commenced, the reasons that referrals have been declined if they were, and then you've got all that episode level data in here as well. So their labour force, NDIS status, homelessness flag, etc., etc. You'll see there's a lot of blanks. That's basically because the data obviously isn't been recorded yet. And that's basically the episode data dump. So there's a lot of information in there. That might be something that that you might want to download. You might need to edit this spreadsheet, so remove certain columns, and you might need to rename certain columns if you're trying to import them into other systems to match. But that might be something as well. The other one is obviously the same kind of reports, a data dump, but it's all service contact data. So again, it's going to contain all the information about all your sessions. We download that one. Okay, so again, you kind of just got a bit of the referral and client information, obviously, bit of the, and then you got all the other stuff. So your session dates, times, duration, the practitioner details, all the MDS data, so modality, service contact type, participants, etc., etc. I think if you keep going further down as well, you'll also start running into some of these, outcome tool columns. So you've got your K10 stuff in here. So this is where you can see the reason for collection, start and end. All the questions, how they were answered, the scores, and then obviously you got all the K5s a bit further down, SIDAS as well as a bit further down. But so that's your service contact data dump. Now the other kind of reports that you'll have access to will be, I think, the tool screen status report. So again, this might be another one for yourselves, I guess, to audit how you're doing with your matched pairs. So for example, you're going to use that K10 again, and we're just going to might do a bigger date period, see if there's more information I can pull out, but I don't think there is. Okay, so for example, like this would be a good example of a matched pair. So you can see here we've got the same referral number, it's the same client, and we've got two different reasons for collection. And I would assume on two different dates, not because we're doing the training, we've just recorded two on the same date, but obviously you'll be able to see review start and end. If, for example, you saw that this one was a review and the episode is actually closed, that might be something where we go back to the service contact and we edit it and change that reason for collection to end before we close the episode. Cool. So those are the reporting capabilities that you will have as service providers in rediCASE. Again, any of this information that I'm kind of going through or that I'm stepping through as well, a lot of it can be found within this profile and help menu. And then you got the guides and manuals as well. So in particular for all those reports, this one might come in handy, SP reports, which is basically service provider reports. And it'll basically be a bit more in-depth detail about the different reports that you'll have available. Another one that you might find particularly helpful is the end user guide, which is basically, again, it's just a step-by-step process of, of everything that I've kind of covered through today. Just all with, screenshots and things like that. Cool. Okay. Now, before I move on to the next part of the training, which will, be more so for if you're interested in terms of like the admin side of things and how things are set up in the system, how users are created, how programs are set up, those default values that I mentioned a bit earlier as well. By all means, you can stick around for that. However, I'm not sure, Jen or Cara, if we wanted to take maybe like a 10-minute time to take and maybe answer any questions that people might have.
Yep, not a problem. Happy to take questions in this point, or even have just a 5-minute break if people need to disappear for a couple of minutes as well. But if anybody has any questions, you can use this time now to put your use the raise hand, and I can come and bring you off mute to talk to Louis. Otherwise, Louis, do you want to reconnect back in at 6:45? 40?
Can I check if people want to take a break? Those that are staying online.
Okay, so far people are happy to push on through?
Yeah, cool. Obviously doing a really good job of explaining everything, Louis. There's been no big questions.
Thank you. If it's okay, do you mind if I step away for 5 minutes?
Yeah, of course, not a problem at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, all
That's
good.
fine. I might just take a moment to flag with everyone. As you're likely aware, NQPHN have been going through a process of co-design to redesign the mental health stepped care services, which I'm aware many of you will be working within. We indicated at our last lot of workshops for anyone that was there that we would be having another round of virtual sessions just to kind of round back on where we've gotten to and how we are thinking the future services system will look, and get some further input. So there'll be some invites coming around for those sessions possibly tomorrow. And just to flag, we're running those sessions, and I'll put this into the chat for anyone who's interested, on Tuesday the 8th of August from 8 to 10, Wednesday the 9th of August 12 to 2, and then Thursday 10th of August 5 to 7 as an after hours session. So I'll pop those into the chat, but there will be some communications coming out with a link to register for anyone who's interested in hearing where things are up to and having some further input into the services.
Let me move on to the next bit, which is, again, it's going to be most of the, in terms of like the setup with rediCASE, how things are set up. Yeah, so things like we'll go through, I guess in particular with users. Users is one of the main things that we'll kind of step through. As many of you know, that with in order, or before we can create users in rediCASE, obviously at your request from the service providers, it is I believe that we let me just see if I can find the document, but essentially we have these new user forms that we send out to people at when a new user wants to be created in the system. So I'll just go through that new user form and how it relates to rediCASE, as why we need to collect some of that information. Let me just see if I can find that form. Okay. Actually, what I might do as well while I'm here is I might just attach a copy of this in the in the chat. So you guys are welcome to save this one internally. So if you ever do have a new user request in the rediCASE, I can't post it in the chat and it won't allow me, but that's all right. I might send it through to Jen and Kara as an email. And
if you wanted to send that through, Louis, I can always put it together with the package we're going to get together.
Yeah, cool. No worries, I'll do that. Okay. Okay. So when we're creating new users in rediCASE, basically we're required to record some of, additional, information about that particular practitioner. So on this form that I've got up at the moment, it's quite generic. So obviously we need a person's first name, their surname, an email address as well. So we need obviously an email address to send, password resets to. You also get your MFA codes through that email address as well. There's also a question in here that says whether the person is going to be a practitioner. So many instances, many providers will have users or admin users or reception staff that will enter data on behalf of their clinicians. So that's why we also have that question in here. So you can tick a yes or no. If they do pick a no, basically what that means in rediCASE is that they won't come up as a practitioner when you're recording a service contact. Which I'll just quickly go through and show again, which is that practitioner list here. So back to here. All right, so the practitioner, the user organization, so what organization they're attached to. You'll see here there's also a practitioner category, which is referenced below in this table. So what category of that user is. So again, this is all kind of part of that MDS data collection. So you've got these different codes and practitioner category names, so clinical, general, etc. Practitioner ATSI cultural training. So whether or not that practitioner has completed that particular training. I don't have too much information on that. I don't know what that's involved, but I'm sure many of you already know what that is. We also need
Louis, can I just add at that point that is actually one of the departmental KPIs as well that we're working towards, the cultural appropriateness of service delivery. So moving forward, this is something that your contract officer will be working with providers to ensure that we're actually increasing our numbers in this space. And it can be sometimes that when you're setting up your staff members in there, they might not have had the opportunity to attend their training that is part of their mandatory induction process they have. We really just want to be working with our providers. If you can show us that you have mandatory processes in place that have cultural awareness training, we can go in and administratively have those things marked off earlier so that we're not forgetting. Otherwise, we'll be working with you to go back and do audits of your staff members and of your users within rediCASE to ensure that that is kept up to date and active to give us the best data.
Yep. Yeah, so on top of that, also we need, their practitioner's year of birth, their gender, their ATSI status as well as what service streams or programs, what we call them in rediCASE, they're provisioned for. So things like that, suicide prevention, mixed service, other, low intensity, child referrals, ATSI referrals, etc. So I'll kind of quickly go through all of that stuff now anyway. So yeah, I'll send this through to Jen and Cara and they can share it out within that info pack for you guys. But essentially when you do ask, in order to create a user in rediCASE, also obviously email it to us, redicase@redborn.com.au. We also require for you guys to CC in your contract manager as well, just so they can confirm that user access as well. Cool. All right, so where I'm logged into at the moment, obviously it's going to look a bit different to your version of rediCASE, but I'm just logged in as an admin user. Now, as an admin user, I've obviously got a lot of tools in order to control the system and how you guys use it. So the first thing I'll kind of go through in terms of organizations is how we set up an organization, how we set up the users, etc. So when a new referral organization is coming on board, essentially we're just going into the admin referral organizations where we have a list of all the providers within NQPHN and NEMI. We can create new. We're giving them a name. We record their address, postcode, phone numbers, email addresses, etc. I'm not going to create one now, but I'll just quickly go through and have a look at a test one. So yeah, obviously, again, in terms of the MDS data for the referral organization stuff, we need a legal name as well as an ABN number, as well as what kind of organization you are. So provider organization type, private allied health is also headspace centers, general medical practices, etc. Okay. And then setting up the users, again, we just go to the users tab and we create a new user. And I'm just going to click on edit for one of them because it looks the same. But basically, we will just give them a username. Again, we need their first name, surname, email address. Once we get all that, we just hit the send user credentials button, which will just send an email out to this email to say that, hey, you've been registered with rediCASE. Here's your username. We don't email passwords in the system rather than so we don't actually send out passwords through emails. We just ask users to use the forgot password button on the login page, which I'll just quickly open and show you as well. So that's just forgot your password. You tick it, put in that username, and then rediCASE will just email you with a reset link, a reset password link, which will just allow you to change the password. Now, on the odd occasion, well, it happens often, but we've got a concept of like, is the user locked out or are they approved? Usually locked out just means that the user is no longer active within the organization. So we just tick that. And basically when the user tries to log in, it'll say a message to say that, you know, you're not active within rediCASE. Please contact your system administrator. We also assign these different types of roles to users. So depending on that role, gives you different access to different things. So for example, you can see in here, there's about 4 different kind of clinician roles. AOD clinicians, we've just set up to include different AOD data items, but most of you already have these organization roles, as well as perhaps some of you might have this practitioner referrals only role. Now, the main difference between these roles are, well, really the only difference between them is this one, practitioner referrals only. This one, if you don't want your users to see data with within your whole organization, so all of the client data, we would assign them this particular role. And what that means is that that person, that user, is only allowed to view referrals that are directly assigned to them in the system. So rather than them going to that search received referral page and seeing everything, they're only going to be able to see referrals that are directly assigned to them. Again, we're going to have a look at all the MDS data that we record as well within the system. So this is the same stuff that we saw in the referral, that user form. So their category, ATSI cultural training, year of birth, gender, practitioner ATSI status, and whether they are a practitioner and they're actively using it. Apart from that, that's basically how we set up users within the organization. And then what we do is, so some organizations may have multiple locations. So they might have or different sites as well. So for example, we've got this one test referral organization. They have one in Cairns. However, on the odd occasion, you might have service providers that have multiple locations. So another one could be at Mackay. Again, we can just give them a name. Let's type in Mackay here. And then within a location, we also assign different users. So for example, you can see here we've got 2 different locations. One's in Mackay, one's in Cairns. And on the other occasion, what could happen is that potentially only one user might actually be accessing their referrals through Cairns, and then the other user might actually be assigned to the one in Mackay. So that's all kind of how we set up users in the system as well. So we create the users and then we assign them to different locations depending if you have any additional ones. And then within the location, we then assign the different programs or service streams that are delivered. So again, for example, Mackay might only be the one for suicide prevention, whereas Cairns might also have, the other mental health programs. I don't have really good program names in here, but let's just use AOD for example. So one site might service all three of these, while the other site might service just the one. So that's kind of how it all works in the background in terms of the user/referral organization setup. This all kind of relates to how the referrers see organizations when they're picking them. So when they're creating a referral, so for example, we've got these two different locations now. When they go through the referral and they complete it, let me just go through and just quickly do one up. They'll see these different locations to where the client, or to where the referral may go. So for example, that that the client lives in Cairns, however, one service provider might be in Cairns and Mackay, and on that occasion, you want to just ensure that the referrer is picking the correct location. So if I'll just bring up this one. So as an admin user, I'm just going to have access to basically all the service providers as well. So I can hit show all, and it's going to show me basically every referral organization, every program that they service, and whatever location they may be assigned to as well. So if I just bring up test organization. Cool. So you'll see here that this now has 3 programs assigned to this Cairns location. So that's kind of how, we set up the referral organizations and the users. Again, it's kind of something that we all do in the background, and it's something that we just set and forget. But again, any of those new users as they come on board, send us through that new user form. Obviously, let us know which organization they work for, and we just basically set them up as we just did then. The other things as well in terms of the setup with rediCASE is programs. So like I mentioned, these are kind of like the different service streams in rediCASE. So the different programs that are being delivered. So depending on the program, we have different setups as well. So for example, I was using suicide prevention before, so I'll keep that one in there. There are different kind of controls that we can do for certain programs. So some of them I'll just quickly run over, but basically, so certain programs might have certain expiry dates. So with after a year's time, they should be closed off or they expire. And so what this basically does, this referral expiry date. So if I did that in a year's time, when the year has passed, a message will come up saying that the referral is basically about to expire. Obviously as a user, you can keep them open if it's required for the service. Otherwise, it might just prompt another trigger to say you need to close the referral down. The other thing as well within programs is called what we call program defaults. And this is what I kind of mentioned a bit earlier in terms of data entry. So this might be something more so for the PHNs to consider, but depending on those programs, there might be a certain principal focus of treatment plan that a user can record. So for suicide prevention, for example, it might be a complex care package principal focus of treatment plan. And basically what that'll do, if I just actually go back into referrals, is that any referral assigned to that program, when I'm commencing the episode or if I'm going to this case file tab, by default, the principal focus of treatment plan, this data item, will only display options that are picked here. So again, you might come across this now, where you'll go through these drop-down menus and you'll only have like one option to pick from, or 2 options to pick from, and this is because that's how the program's been set up. So again, if you know, For example, that hypnotic and sedative is always going to be no for this program. Sorry, excuse me. If you know that, sorry, if those medications are always going to be displayed as no, we can just set them up like that. And I guess this kind of it plays in line with the data entry stuff as well. So if they're defaulted with one option, then when you get to that commence episode action, they'll all already be recorded as, no's or yes no's, whichever the option has been selected for. Again, with the suicide referral flag, that kind of stuff as well. Same with diagnoses, we can all kind of default those settings to display one particular option or 2 or 3. So that's a bit of the program setup as well. Now, in terms of this datasets tab, what it means is that everything in rediCASE is going to be marked as PMHC MDS. And that is what is enforcing all of those mandatory fields when you're commencing an episode, when you're looking at the client details, and when you're recording session data as well. So that's just a quick little background knowledge about the setup of the programs as well. The other things that we can have a quick look at is I mentioned a bit earlier those correspondence things, so those communications. So if you wanted to set those things up, again, this is something done through us here at rediCASE, through the permission through the PHN, but essentially we can set up these different correspondence templates that will pre-fill an SMS, sorry, an SMS or an email with the client's information and their appointment dates and times if you were using appointments and things like that. So I can use that for an example. We'll just do an appointment one, and I'll show you how that kind of works. So let's just do email template. So this will basically just allow me to write in a template. So I can put in hi, and then I can just insert these other client fields. So things like their first name, surname, and then we can write a message. No, don't forget, you have an appointment with, you can add the clinician's name on appointment date and time. I'll leave the other ones like that, but essentially this is kind of like what a template is. So when I open up, actually I might just see if I can grab one now to show you what it does. So if I go back to a client file, and I'll go to that communication tab and hit send correspondence. So if I pick email, hit next, I should be able to see, why not save it correctly? Save. Let's go back to hold on. Okay, sorry, I just didn't save that correctly. Let's just do this one again. Sorry, I'm just going to quickly go through and just do another one real quick. Okay, let's just do that one real quick. All right, so we'll pick that template. So the template name is called just email referral. And you should just be able to see automatically the template's kind of filled in client's first name, surname, that program name, and what organization they're with. So obviously we can put it in a bit more detail. We can add, images, tables, and a bit more branding in these correspondence if you needed to. But that's how that kind of all works. So those are those different templates. So again, you can kind of set them up in different ways in terms of, if it's for appointments or if it's for surveys as well, which is another thing I'll quickly go over. So that's your templates. And then I'll just quickly go through that survey section as well. Okay, so again, surveys, it kind of, relates to all the correspondence stuff. In particular, what might come up a bit later on, depending on NQPHN, is that yes survey. So I think it's, what is it, your experience of service survey, which may be something that will be sent to a client post-treatment. So if I just open up one, for example, this is what the survey is. So it's another one of these, Department of Health developed it, and we've just basically put it into rediCASE, and it's a quick, it's not really quick, I think it's a 26 question survey based on the client's experience at your service. So this might be something that will automatically be sent to a client post-treatment. It could be like a week after treatment, they'll get a survey, which will just be automatically sent to them, which they can respond to. It's not obviously mandatory, but it's something that they can respond to. And then all this information that they get from this particular survey, the yes survey, is considered de-identified. So you won't be able to see the responses that they get back from this particular survey. However, in rediCASE, there's the ability to obviously create customized surveys. So things like, favorite ice cream, or it could be like a pre-assessment survey that you want to send to a client before they come in for their first session, to get a better gauge of how they're going. But the surveys, again, it's something that we at rediCASE would probably build for the NQPHN, and it's up to them to use it or not. But if that ever does happen, that's kind of how it's all set up in the background. We can create these different types of surveys. By building basically your own questions. So things like, on a scale of 1 to 10. We set up these different types of questions. So whether it's a radio button, a star rating, a smiley face rating, or Likert scale. That's how all this stuff works. We basically just build these different surveys. Like so, we just build questions, we add them to the survey. That's probably not a good example. Maybe if I just do a range slider from 1 to 10. Get rid of that. There. And so they'll get a survey by SMS or email, asking them all these questions, and they can just kind of pick or use the survey like so. And then any of these kinds of surveys can be received back, which can be then, analyzed further through reporting that we saw a bit earlier as well. So those are the different types of surveys. Other things that, other things that can be set up in the system are like fee schedules and payment processing. I won't go into it too much, as I'm not sure if there's going to be many NEMI users here. So those of you that do receive referrals through NEMI, Connect to Wellbeing, you might notice that a lot of their referrals will have like a session count on them. See if I can find one here, just to quickly show you what it looks like. So you can see here at the top, it'll tell them how many sessions they're allowed within the episode of care. And all of that is kind of configured through this fee schedule setup. So what we do is we basically will set up a fee schedule based on a program, and we apply, how many sessions are allowed within that episode of care, or how many hours are allowed within that episode of care. So for example, we can use here, how many sessions are allowed within this program? We can say 5. Otherwise, if it's time-based, you can say how many minutes. We can say 600 minutes, which is essentially what, 10 hours? Yeah, 10 hours. And then that's what some of you might see here, where you've got these approved service contact times. And then I guess every time you're creating new sessions, it's basically going to deduct time from your episode. Now, in addition to that, I think only NEMI staff are using it as just to limit how many sessions are allowed. But on top of that, rediCASE has a whole invoicing system in it as well. So you can actually invoice, so every service contact that you record in the system is what is called like an RCTI, the recipient created tax invoice, which is you basically invoicing the PHN or NEMI every time you save a session. So all that kind of stuff is built into the system as well. And which, yeah, obviously ties into the invoice processing, payment processing, etc. But again, I won't go too much into it at the moment. But for those of you who do, yeah, receive referrals from NEMI, Connect to Wellbeing, you might see that quite a bit in terms of, yeah, those session counts as well. Another thing just to quickly go over as well, which I wasn't able to show you before in the other login, but is that whole appointment booking calendar as well. Okay. So see if this loads up for me. Okay, so yeah, so this was just the other appointment calendar that I mentioned a bit earlier. So you can book appointments through the direct referral, through that create appointment action, which I showed you as well, or through here, the appointments. So you can create appointments through there. Alternatively, you can obviously just hit the appointment calendar and you can create appointments through the calendar as well. So you basically just want to double click where you want to book an appointment. So you can see here the appointment date and times where we've clicked, and then you can start searching for clients that you want to add to that appointment. And I didn't set this one up either. Okay, but essentially, yeah, you've got a quick search option here, so you can just start quickly typing a client's name, and that's basically it. You just book an appointment, hit save, and it'll just show you that appointment on the appointment calendar as well. There is obviously a bit more we can go into if you wanted to turn this on and have a look into it. Again, this is kind of just an email request. That's the appointment booking as well. Other things as well that we can quickly go over in terms of, yeah, setting up rediCASE would be actually, there's not too much into it on this side. Most of this kind of stuff we do in the background is kind of set and forget. So we set it all up and we basically forget about it for 6 months until something changes, where we need to go through and edit some of that information. But most of the other stuff here most of it's not going to be really too applicable for you guys as end users or service provider users, as yeah, most of the controls are kind of done through the PHN logins or rediCASE Redborn logins. But other than that, I think that kind of hopefully wraps it up. I'm not sure, Cara or Jen, if you want to, I don't know if there's anything that I've missed, or is there anything that you'll kind of want me to go into in particular regarding this setup?
We have had one more question come in from Sharon. She's asking if there is a function to send GP who referred a letter that self-populates with the GP details and client demographics at all.
Good question. So there's actually a few things that should already be happening at the moment in your environment. So basically, there's these automated referral notifications that go out to GPs, to companies, or to referral organizations. So things in particular like notify, I guess, the GP of referral commencement, or notify a GP of accepted referrals. So those things should automatically be happening already in rediCASE once these particular actions take place. So for example, this one that I've highlighted here, notify GP of accepted referrals. When you as a service provider accept the referral, an automated email will go out to the GP or the referrer if their email has been recorded, to say that, you know, it's actually semi de-identified information, so we actually don't send through like a client's full name or anything like that. We'll just send through like initials. Their date of birth will be sent through, what program they've been assigned to, what the status of the referral. It doesn't actually show, or it actually won't send through things like client demographics. Those things remain in rediCASE. But in terms of, I guess, those correspondence templates, you can, as well as like SMS and email stuff, we can build other ones like PDFs. Let me just quickly see if I can generate one now for us, just for this question in particular. So PDFs. So we can say, you know, hi doctor. Then we can put the referrer's name in here. Let's just put the client's name in there. Now I'm just having a quick look. I don't think we can actually. No, it's not so much the client demographics we can insert into these templates. The only things that we can put through, it looks like, is just gender, date of birth, and some address information and contact information. Now, when I say like these are PDF documents, what happens is if I go to the referrals again. Okay, so create document, PDF document, and we can pick a template. So that PDF in here. Okay, which basically will just, again, you got all the information here, but you can add information as well if you wanted to. And when you hit save, it'll save as a PDF document within this documents tab. And what you can do then, I mean, it is kind of a manual process as it's not automated, but you can download and email that PDF document to the GP as well. Oh, okay. So like so it was more of a completion of therapy and summary of the treatment provided. That is something that we are currently, I think we've got on the roadmap for 2024, where basically when you close an episode of care, like a quick little, like, I don't know what you call it, like a synopsis of the client record and their treatment will be automatically sent back to the referrer. Those kinds of things, yeah, it's been requested by other PHNs as well and other staff and other users. But yeah, that's on our roadmap in 2024 to have that automated, to give them a summary of that, of basically what's happened within that episode of care with the client. But it's not something that's automated at the moment. Okay, I don't think it'll be so much a practitioner logo, but the referral organization's logo. So service provider XYZ might have their own logo, but that will just automatically be populated on that correspondence back out to the GP. Now there is, in addition to this question, like there is an additional module that is what we call the GP integrator, where rediCASE will be integrated with the GP software, so things like best practice or medical director. It is being used by one other PHN at the moment. It's, however, it was a struggle to get it all set up, just in terms of trying to get GPs across the board for that. But basically, it's the referral form will be embedded into that medical director or best practice, and when that is set up in the system, there are certain things that go back directly to the GP, the referring GP, every time a session is completed. So you can update, you can send progress notes to a GP automatically. You can send, I guess the whole client record snapshot to the GP as well, so all their demographics, etc. Those things are built in with that additional GP integrator software that we have with the system. But like I mentioned, it is only used by one other PHN, and it was incredibly an arduous journey to try to get them across the board to use it, basically. So I'm not sure if NQPHN want to go down that route, considering, but it is something as well.
I think that seems pretty comprehensive. There aren't any other questions for Louis? If there are no other questions, I'd just like to firstly thank everyone for being involved and signing in tonight. I know it's always hard after a long day of practice. And I'd also really like to thank you, Louis, for giving up your evening as well to give us this opportunity to engage with providers at a time that we know is sometimes a little bit better, because it's so difficult to find time in the busy day of client appointments. So yeah, thank you very much.
Cool,
Just
no
before we
worries.
finish up, if anybody has any thoughts overnight or tomorrow and you do have any questions, because we're trying to complete a frequently asked questions, obviously you have the opportunity to always email rediCASE at Redborn any queries that you might have, but I'm happy to take any questions and put them through to Louis as well, and then get some answers back for everybody as well. So yeah, please, if there's anything that crops up later, reach out.